UK's economy grew by 0.1% in November. However, I'm asking you, are you still struggling in the cost of living crisis? Do you need some help or advice at all? Get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Let me know how you've been handling everything. But let me just go in that in a little bit more. As I said, the UK economy grew by 0.1% in November, better than analysts actually had expected. Not only that, it does look like 2022. Last year, we didn't go into recession. Nonetheless, there are still fears we could go into recession this year. Positively, inflation potentially could come down. If you've gone to the fuel pumps, you'll see that petrol and diesel are both down, although diesel's, gosh, it's about 25%, 25 pence more than petrol. But nonetheless, things are very, very difficult still, particularly when it comes to things like, it talks about food, but also electricity, gas. Oh, how often have you having to, if you have a prepayment meter, go out to top it up? If you don't, if you pay by credit, end of the month, how much has that gone up by? Get in touch, 0344 499 1000. We are going to talk all the advice that you need. Dr. Roger Gewolb, am I saying your surname properly? I was asking Johnny. Gewolb, darn it. Good to have you back at Talk TV.
Hi, Claudia.
How are you doing?
Very well. How are you doing?
You know, things could be better. It would be great if maybe 2023 was quite different to how things ended in 2022, but things are still tough. I mean, you know, in terms of the news that we got yesterday in regards to where we are, the GDP, how did you take that?
Not very much. I mean, these minute figures in monthly changes, you know, 0.1%, 0.3%, whether in recession or not in recession, this stuff doesn't affect people. This doesn't affect ordinary people. The government likes to talk about it. The government likes to say, hey, we're bringing inflation down. Jeremy Hunt says we're going to have inflation this year. I'm sorry, but I've said so many times on Talk TV, we have cost push inflation, non-consumer driven inflation. We don't have inflation because people are overspending. People are cutting back. They're choosing between heating and eating, for goodness sake. So the government and the Bank of England can claim all the credit they want, but cost push inflation, as it did between 2009 2012, runs itself out. It's going to have because it's going to have. It's got nothing to do with raising interest rates, which we shouldn't have done, or anything else. And these minute changes don't really affect you and me on a daily basis.
Don't you think, as I said, fuel has come down? Do you think that could have any role in potentially inflation dropping? How do you think inflation is looking right now?
That's part of it. I mean, the cost-push inflation is dropping because fuel is going down, petrol is going down, energy prices are going down. And that's all part of the process of what happens. The cost-push inflation runs itself out. So we're seeing it already. So, yes, it's extremely likely that inflation will have, but it's through natural causes. It's not through anything that the government particularly is doing, or the Bank of England.
So let's talk advice. So, guys, all of you listening, watching out there, get in touch. Roger's going to be sticking with us to give any kind of advice that you might need, you might want to help you navigate through the cost of living crisis right now. So look, first up, lots of people struggling for many of the reasons you just mentioned. What can anyone do to start cutting back, start saving money, to get a bit more money in their wallets?
Well, it depends where people are on the scale, CL. I mean, one thing everybody can do is go and talk to their MP, go and talk to their local councillor, and explain to them what their life is like. So the truth is, this government doesn't get it. I really don't think that rich people can understand what the average Brit is living like.
Well, they're members of Labour MPs who are also quite wealthy. So Keir Starmer, he's not a poor lad, is he?
Rishi is so rich that he pays his kids pocket money in Bitcoin. Jeremy Hunt, when he tickles his kids, he says Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. I mean, these guys, they don't get it.
Even so, if you look to Labour, they're not, you know,
I didn't say they're
homeless, they're not.
Didn't say they're any better.
They still also
But go to your MP and explain what your life is like, so that they can talk to the government and do something, because they aren't really relating to us and what's needed. The second thing, I mean, the most important thing is to decouple electricity from gas.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Okay, 2/3 of your home energy bill is electricity. 80% of that electricity does not come from gas. It has nothing to do whatsoever with gas. It comes from renewables. It comes from solar, from nuclear, from, wind, all sorts of things, as much as 80% of it. And yet our electricity prices and what we pay the energy companies for it is based on the international price of gas, which of course has been manipulated every day by Putin, since the war started. It's dropped now to a lower level, but the experts figure that if we decoupled the price of electricity from gas, it would save every household £1,500 a year.
So this is something that we can't do as individuals with our own homes?
No, but you can tell your MP, and enough because Boris told them, Ofgem, the regulator, told them, John Penrose, the MP who invented the price cap, told them. All the people have been telling this government and successive ones to decouple it. This is a huge change. 1,500 quid in your pocket.
What about anything that we can do ourselves?
The next thing, and I think this is some of these things, of course, as I say, it depends where you are on the scale, but some of these things are going to apply to everybody. One thing that applies to everybody, Claudia, is what I recommend is take your bank statement one quiet afternoon, take your credit card statements and go through it and put a line through everything you're not using. A study 2 years ago unbelievably showed that the average Briton spends £30,000 in a lifetime on subscriptions, domain names, gym memberships, and other things that they never use.
£30,000.
30 grand in a lifetime, and I don't mean rich people. The average Brit that's the useless stuff that we sign up for. So chop everything you can that you see in your bank statement, your credit card statement. Chop it, get rid of it, close it as soon as you can. All sorts of things you can do. If you have mobile Wi-Fi devices, cancel them and just use the hotspot on your phone. Use the hotspot on your partner's phone.
Right, yes.
So many things that you can do like that.
And what about people who are becoming so desperate or their money's running out that they're having to turn to things like credit cards, payday loans? Okay,
that's the other end of the scale. Two things there I would suggest. When the pandemic began, of course, people stopped using cash. They didn't want to touch cash. Now, last year, the use of cash being withdrawn from ATM machines increased by 20%. So people are using cash so that they don't put stuff on their credit cards. And something that a lot of people are doing, a trick, is they go out and they buy 100 envelopes and they put cash into each envelope for a purpose. Grocery, night out, booze, mother-in-law, whatever it is. And when that cash is gone, you stop.
So
and you don't use your credit card, and it seems to work.
It doesn't when you do use your credit or even debit card, it doesn't really feel like you're spending cash, does it? Like but when you actually see it, or if you set yourself a limit, of course it will stop. Okay, well look, you're going to stick with us, aren't you? If you've got any calls and messages, answer to people's calls,
absolutely.
Answer some of my questions as well as to how we can save some money, save some cash in the cost of living crisis.
And there's one other thing, if I have time, I'd just like to add for the people you mentioned who are really out of cash. And I come across a lot of folks who their solution is to skip a meal. You just skip a meal 2-3 times a week. Don't do that. It's demoralizing. Your kids won't understand. Go to a supermarket. Most supermarket chains have wonderful restaurants with nourishing, delicious food, lovely surroundings for next to nothing.
They do, gosh.
Do that instead of skipping the meal.
Like Asda have very good.
My wife and I sometimes go to Morrison's. We could afford to go somewhere nicer.
You're right. All right. Okay, look, we're going to continue this conversation. Any advice you need, get in touch. 0344 499 1000. You're watching Claudia-Liza on Talk TV. Good afternoon, you're watching Claudia-Liza on Talk TV. We are going to be answering any of your financial questions. We are asking, we're talking about GDP. Went up in November, apparently positive, right? Good news. However, are you still struggling in the cost of living crisis? Get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Tweet me at Claudia-Liza TV. You can also tweet at Talk TV. Got Dr. Roger with us. Good afternoon, Dr. Roger.
Good afternoon.
We've already got a call for you. We got Susan calling from Barry Island. Good afternoon to you, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate you calling from Wales as well. Really, really appreciate it. Yes,
It's very windy over here on the
I
island.
tell you what, it's really windy here as well. We're going to talk weather later, but what do you need to know? What kind of help do you need from Dr. Roger this afternoon?
Well, it's not help, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's just reiterating what Dr. Roger said about, I remember my nan putting things into different envelopes and things like that. Now, I do it a different way now. With the Monzo account, you can actually put little credit cards on your thing and just split it up into all different pots. And it works absolutely brilliantly.
So
you can transfer and move things around all the time. It's so easy to use.
So it effectively works like envelopes?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, that's right.
The thing, though, is that you are still working with plastic. It's very easy to do what you said and run something up with that. When you've got the wonga in your hand out of the envelope that you got at Ryman's, it's real. And when there's no more cash in your fingers, you stop drinking.
Well, let's ask Susan, does that always work? Do you sometimes find, you maybe go back into your main account and take money from there to pay for things, or how are you finding you doing that?
It seems to be working out very well at the moment. I mean, if it all goes awry, just go to Bank of Mum and Dad, really.
All about that. But yes, okay, so how does it work exactly then? So do you set up these sort of mini debit cards and you put cash and assign whatever money, so groceries, it would be maybe 100 for the month or whatever, and then maybe your electricity, utilities, £50 for that. Now I'm just obviously playing with numbers here, but is that how it works? Then you just use that £100 for groceries, and you try as much as possible not to dip into your proper account, your main account.
Well, I have a main high street account, and then, excuse me, the surplus that I have, I put into the Monzo account, and then I will look at the bank statements, everything else, and I have cancelled all my subscriptions and things like that, and that has saved me an awful lot of money. And then just split it into different pots. Yeah, like you say, groceries, going out. Not that we bother doing that anymore, do we?
It's crazy.
And, just being specific, really, about where the money is. So I always have a surplus in my main banking account, but this is where I split it up.
How have you been coping? Because we've been talking about things going up and up and up, and the severity that I can actually talk about fuel maybe coming down a bit. But how have you been? Have your family been coping?
Very well, they're fine.
Yeah.
There's no problems here. No, not at all. Not with the cost of living. Not at the moment.
How is that? How is it you've avoided that? That's amazing. I need to try and incorporate what you're doing, Susan.
I don't know. I just think this. My mum is extremely clever with money and always has been. Every week, I always remember her sitting on the sofa actually looking at the bank statements and the checkbook stubs and everything else, and actually making sure she knew exactly what's going in and going out.
And is that what you would say we don't do as much, Dr. Roger? We're not staying across how much we're spending or outgoing?
Well, I would say that Susan, is exceptional in that she has an exceptional background and an exceptional practice.
You've got a good mum there, Susan.
Of finances now. So, Susan, you don't really belong in this category of people in trouble. But
maybe this is why, because Susan, you've put things in place, following in your mum's footsteps, put things in place to make sure that it doesn't hit you as hard. Do you think that's could be behind this?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's been organised or whatever.
So things like even groceries, you're not finding having to pay a bit more, or you're not even paying a bit more?
Definitely, yes. Oh, definitely, yes. I mean, I know this sounds absolutely mundane, but I looked at the price of 2 rolls of Plenty kitchen towel the other day, £6 and 5 pence.
I've seen that. That's crazy. Tissue. Yeah. You go for the cheaper, but I don't need Plenty. Do you know what I mean? I don't need any more. Susan, thanks very much for your call. I'm going to try that. I'm going to look. I've got online banking, and I will take a look and see whether there's a way that I can manage each payment towards whatever area of life, whether it's groceries or utilities, etc. So look, let's talk about credit cards, right, and pay loans. Is it best people try to avoid using those?
Absolutely.
And how do you know when money has run out?
Well, that's why this cash envelope deal appeals to me so much, that when it runs out, as in the old days, it runs out. You don't have the high street bank or the other account to dip into and then fill it up again. And you learn to budget yourself. Yeah, I mean, go generic. We live in a country with the greatest, most effective advertising in the world. So we buy Heinz beans and Kleenex and Coke and all because we've been told to all our lives. Stop for a moment, go home, put on a blindfold, taste the generic and the other, see if you can tell the difference, and you can save an awful lot of money.
Okay, I see what you're saying there, but there's a certain baked beans brand. There's nothing better than that.
Okay, well.
Anyway, not that I know. I'm going to try. I will try. I will see if it's cheaper, because it's very annoying because it's so much more expensive.
That's your view. I mean, maybe those beans, yeah, but there's plenty of other things.
I'm going to give it a try. Who knows? Who knows? We got a call. We've got Simon calling from the West Midlands. And Simon, you're struggling with your finances. What's going on?
I'm on universal credit and I only get about 260 to 270 a month.
Oh, wow.
And they haven't done anything about stopping the bedroom tax for people, and I'm paying £51 a month on that.
Because you have an extra room, well, at least that's what the council deem.
Yeah. Oh. It seems my electric's gone up to about £180 a month. So where do I find TV licence, water and food?
Sure. Really well, this is why I think it's important for people to go to their MP, and as obscure as it seems, as far removed from our daily lives as it seems, tell the MP, decouple the electricity from the gas price, because you'll save, they say, the experts, 1,500 quid. The other thing people can do is tell the government to settle the strikes. Because those strikes are making everything more. We have got, I'm sorry guys, I know you work hard, I know you mean well, we've got a stingy government. Rishi, when petrol was £1.80 a litre, of which £1.60, people don't know this, was tax. 160 of that 180 was government tax. He gave us a whole 5p off that. It didn't even touch the sides.
So you advise others, including Simon, to see their GP.
Tell the MP, settle the strikes. The nurses earn half of what they do in America.
What Simon could do right now, especially, Simon, and actually,
get the envelopes with the money.
Somebody on a very low income, somebody on benefits, somebody on universal credit. They're working, and then they're also on benefits.
Whatever you're spending that you can whatever you're spending, Simon, that you can cut from your bank statement, your credit card statement, whatever, cut it. Number two, go generic as much as you can. You'll save a lot of money there. Don't demoralize yourself. Don't upset your kids by skipping meals. Go to Morrison's or Asda or wherever and eat rather than not eat. Okay?
I make sure I eat every day because I tend to cook bulk. I tend to cook bulk, so I do eat every day.
That's a good tip.
Well, cooking bulk, buying bulk and sticking the excess in the freezer is a great way to save. Absolutely.
That must be so helpful, the fact that you can cook. You used to be a chef, Simon. What I think would be maybe some good advice as well is what kind of help and support, because £180 on just utilities, just on energy bills, even before you can even look at anything else. That sounds like a lot. What if you get to a point where you can't afford, you absolutely do not have the money to pay for things like bills? Is there any support that could he call the energy companies to speak to them?
Definitely.
Local, citizen advice.
They know they're being paid a lot more than they should expect. Call them up and tell them, that you cannot afford it, and work something out with them. Many of them will do that because they know they're going to come under increasing criticism for this. And the government will also come under increasing criticism if they don't get real and start to help people with more and more grants. Now, I see on my electricity bills these grants coming in, this relief, £60 here and so on and so on, and it's much appreciated. It's very helpful. They need to do more.
Have you tried speaking, Simon, to any of your energy providers, anybody you pay bills to?
Well, I'm only on electric, so the £67 that I get from the government each month at the minute does help.
Have you spoken to I mean, would it be worth speaking to your electricity provider? Just, it can't hurt, right, if there's 5, 10, 15 quid knocked off your energy bills.
Yeah.
The one thing they have done at the moment, since I've asked them, is that the standing charge, they've frozen to nothing. I'm not being charged a standing charge at the minute.
Well, that's good, because there's a stealth tax coming where they're going to increase the standing charge, which is really dreadful. But if they've frozen yours, that's good. The other thing is, make sure you're on the tariff where you're on the cheapest tariff, so that if you, for example, do your laundry at night, it costs you a whole lot less.
I've been doing
I do my laundry at night anyway because it's economy 7.
So that's the cheapest, is it?
Nice.
Yeah. I also do my cooking at night because it's the cheapest tariff as well, economy 7.
Good advice there.
The other thing I would do
wash dry at night. That's what I do.
I would get a lot of neighbors together and buy, not just in bulk, buy wholesale and split it between yourselves. You save even more money. And if you can get a whole group of people to talk to your energy provider at once, that will put some pressure on them.
Simon, thank you for your call. I said make sure you do speak to, and not just the energy suppliers, if you have, mobile phone providers, anybody and everybody, give them a call, say things are tough. Honestly, they would need to have a heart of stone. If the advisor you're talking to isn't going to help you, just say, can I speak to a supervisor or manager, okay? Because, you know, who knows, either the advisor might not have the power to do anything, so do always push. I'm going to try and get in another call. Tom's calling from Chelmsford. Afternoon to you, Tom. How can Dr. Roger help you?
Well, I would suggest that the doctors suggest to people that they just knock next door and speak to a pensioner and find out a pensioner's been getting by for the last 20 years.
That's a very good point. Tom, what's your experience in that? Are you a pensioner, or do you have pensioners living around you? Or?
Yeah, I'm a pensioner. I'm 80 years old plus, and I've seen this all before, but I've learnt to live cheap back in the olden days, back in the 40s and the 50s. You don't waste anything. You go shopping with a list. You only buy what's on the list. People think they're hard up because they can't buy impulse purchases or flat a credit card on a coffee 3 days a week. That's not hard up. Hard up is trying to find enough food to live on. Ask pensioners how they do it, because pensioners have managed to get by on a lot less for a lot longer. You batch cook, you make a meal last 2 or 3 days, and that is how you get by. And you've got to remember, in 18 months' time, they've got to start giving it all back if they want to win the next election. So don't do that.
So you think just weather the storm is your advice? I mean, have you found yourself struggling a little bit more in all of this?
Yeah, I've been struggling a lot. What I'll do, I would take out the same amount of housekeeping every week, and what I had left over, I'd put a little bit to one side, and after a few months, I'd have enough left over to treat myself to a steak or a meal that I needed a knife and fork for.
Oh, sweetheart.
But now I'm finding I don't have enough money left over to do that. In fact, I'm even looking at my cats and thinking of curry, you know? So.
Well, you made a great point, Tom, that I was going to come to, which is everything changes, and this isn't going to last forever. Your 18-month point, you're absolutely right. I think that the government not providing, this is just my personal theory, not providing more help when they could, and raising all these taxes in the latest budget.
Dr. Roger, I'm going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you so much for your time. Tom, thank you for your call, and thank you for all of your calls on this. Plenty more after the break.